What's up, my friends? It is Danny Gallows, of course, and welcome to the first official movie review on my channel. As you guys know, you've heard me say previously that I want to start trying more of a variety of things on my channel. I've already started to do that, but for today, I've got my very first official movie review. And as many of you guys know already, just yesterday, I got to go see Wonder Woman, and I got to do my reaction, my fresh reaction, coming out of the theaters, letting you know what I thought of the movie, my unfiltered thoughts, and now it's time to give you guys a real review of the movie, my filtered thoughts of the movie going down through the entire, my whole list, everything that I took notes on at the movie theaters. And of course you guys should know right off the bat, this is going to be a spoiler-filled review, not spoiler-free. I'm going to be talking about every single element from the beginning to the end of the film. So if you guys haven't seen it yet, go out, pause the video, go out, get a chance to see it, and then come back here and share your thoughts and opinions with me. But yeah, let's get going with my first official movie review. So right off the bat, I have to tell you guys, I am not a big comic book fan. I never have been. All throughout my life, I attached to stuff like fantasy and sci-fi and stuff like that, and to Star Wars, of course, but I never attached to like superheroes. I was never a part of the Marvel universe, never part of the DC universe. And as far as going to see their movies, I'm not there opening night. I'll see it maybe a day after, or 2 days, or sometimes even a week after. So, not being a comic book guy, you guys have to know I went into this movie with no expectations. I didn't even watch any trailers. I think I saw like one little teaser trailer a long time ago, and it didn't look all that good to me, so I just said, whatever. But when it started getting rave reviews, I had to go see it. And let me tell you guys, without being a comic book fan, without being a DC guy, I'm not the biggest fan of movies like Civil War and even like Winter Soldier and stuff like that. The brand new Captain America movies and stuff like that. All the Avengers and stuff like that. I'm not a big fan of all that stuff. But let me tell you guys, when I exited this theater, you found yourself a new fan. Because this movie, even after processing it for an entire day, this movie is awesome. I wasn't expecting anything out of this movie, and it was quite phenomenal. Just the beginning by itself, the very beginning of the movie, was very beautifully done. I mean, there's this amazing Greek-style artwork that they brought to life, just moving pictures that they brought to life before your eyes. But the thing about the beginning of the movie is that, although it was very gorgeous and everything, I didn't really care too much for the origin stories. It was kind of generic. It was a little bit on the generic side. The mother character, the mother of Diana, I thought she was a very flat actress. I thought she was kind of miscast in that role. She was much flatter than she needed to be for that role, so I didn't really care for that too much. And then the sudden change of heart, like, oh no, I don't want Diana to train. I don't want her to train. She will never train. I forbid her to train. Okay, you can train her now. I didn't really care too much for that generic kind of origin stories. And then you had the classic tropes with the mother and the sister character. The sister wants her to train, and then Diane is like the only one. She's the chosen one. Even Star Wars does that. The chosen one. No, there's only one. There can only be one person, and it is Diana, and she must train to become the perfect person. And then they rush this origin story through. But the thing about it, though, is that the entire sequence, as generic as it can be at times, it was very, very well executed. How she did it, how Patty Jenkins, the director, how she did it was very, very unique. It was very, very uniquely done, and I appreciate that. I really appreciate that a lot, that, you can run into these generic tropes sometimes, but as long as you do it in your own way and you execute it right, it's perfect. And she did it again right here in this opening sequence. And speaking of the opening sequences, Chris Pine's character had a great introduction in this film. I loved his introduction with the Navy. The plane comes through the barrier of the island, crashes into the ocean. Diana jumps off the cliff to save him, and then the Navy comes through. The German Navy, looking for Chris Pine's character, comes through the barrier, and all of a sudden these ships appear out there, and then we get our very first battle sequence of the movie. And this first action sequence here is where Patty Jenkins' direction first really shines through. This is the first part of the movie where her direction really shines here. Amazingly shot action sequence. The very first action sequence of this movie was absolutely stunning to watch. Very, very well directed. And I have to say, even after that battle sequence, the sister character dies, the mentor character dies, of course, and then after that, Chris Pine's character is brought back and into the island and into the community of women. And I have to say, the very first thing that I noticed here was the chemistry going on between Chris Pine and Gal Gadot, excuse me, their characters in this movie. They had perfect character together. Gal Gadot and Chris Pine, perfect matchup in terms of chemistry for this movie. They really played off each other well, and I really appreciated the directing all throughout those intimate kind of sequences that they had together. Now, one of my absolute favorite parts of the movie, though, was another sequence that came soon after this, when, of course, Chris Pine's character was recalling his past adventure. One of my favorite parts of the movie, man, Dr. Poison sequence. I love Dr. Poison. I love Dr. Poison. Everybody was sitting there going, "Oh man, she's like this terrible character," and "Oh my goodness, like look at this sad, disturbed woman," and all that. And I'm like, "Oh, there's my girlfriend." I loved Dr. Poison's setup, how they executed her character, how she looked, what she was doing. All the gas warfare, of course, was a very prevalent thing in World War I. It was the gas war, and so of course she's working on all this chemical warfare, all this gas warfare, and I wanted her history delved into a little bit more, because I was so invested in her. I was so interested in her character. I wanted to explore her history more. And then, of course, Diana goes out on her big adventure. Her and Chris Pine, as character, they plan to escape the island. They have a nice little meeting between her mother, who finally lets her go. And then they arrive in London. They cross the barrier, they cross the ocean, and then they arrive in London. And, when I was watching Chris Stuckman's review of this, he made a comment. He said that Wonder Woman is kind of set up like an anime. And it's true, it is. It's set up like an anime. He was talking about, you have the awkward sleepover episode, you have the coming into town and everything's brand new episode, you have the gathering all your armor and your equipment episode, you have the ragtag group of individuals coming together to fight for the common cause. It's set up, and then the rushed origin story in the beginning. It's set up exactly like an anime, and that's partially why I love the movie so much, is how it was paced and how it was executed all throughout. And I have to say, the color palette in this movie, everybody keeps commenting about the bright color palette in this movie, and I have to make a comment on it myself. The colors in this movie were absolutely stunning. Even the gray palettes, when they're coming into London for the first time, even the grays and the steel blues and stuff like that are just amazingly vivid color palettes. And I just loved it so much. It was very, very pleasing to the eye. And also, the very interesting concepts that they began to explore as Diana came into the city. Diana coming from a community of women ruled over by a woman. And then when she came to London, she finds the exact opposite. She finds a community of men, mostly, ruled over by men, mostly. And it's this very interesting concept that they keep playing throughout the entire movie. It's a very strange environment to Diana, and while at the same time, it's for the time period that we're in, it's very strange for the men to see Diana acting like that, and I loved that dynamic they were playing out throughout the entire movie. Very, very smart to play that dynamic throughout the movie, to give the movie that extra feel of humanity and everything. But again, with Chris Pine's character and the army, again we run into classic tropes right after this, where the army won't help. They've just discovered all this information, Diana can speak this, language and everything, but now the army for some reason doesn't want to help. So what does Chris Pine's character have to do? Well, now he has to go and find his friends, and he has to group this ragtag individuals together. But here, I have to say, it doesn't matter if you're following generic setups here, because how Patty Jenkins executed all of these sequences. I loved all of the characters, the Scottish guy, the Middle Eastern guy, the Native American guy, and then of course, Chris Pine's character and Wonder Woman. They were awesome. They all worked so well together. They were such a dynamic duo, and they all had these very unique personalities, and that just brought so much flavor to the role. And like I said, it was executed very, very well. Coming together, how they grouped up, what they were fighting for, where they were going, and everything. It was so well set up. One of the other things that I really enjoyed about this film was all of the hidden art direction in the movie. Patty Jenkins is a very skilled artistic director. All throughout the movie, you'll see these very artistic shots, and you don't see this in superhero movies. In superhero movies, it's all focused on action and stuff like that. Patty Jenkins, she took the time to slow down in certain areas, to capture the environment, to capture the atmosphere around her, the imagery. You know how directors can direct their scenes to make their scenes look like photographs in time, like old time capsules and stuff like that. Lots of that kind of artistic direction going on throughout that film, and it really just it brought so much life and so much energy to the film. Such a wonderful feeling as well. And which actually brings me into my next point here, is that Wonder Woman is a war movie. Going on with all this art direction, right? You need that in a war film. All the best war films in the world have a significant amount of art direction going on. And Wonder Woman is a war film. I mentioned this in my reaction, how that it has superhero elements spread out throughout the film, but it's really a war film. When you break down Wonder Woman, it's a war film. There's all throughout, there's these extremely well-directed and detailed battle sequences, very visceral battle sequences going on that were fantastically directed and fantastically executed. But I do have to share some thoughts of some other reviewers out there. There is way too much slow-mo going on in these battle sequences. I don't know I don't know if that was Patty Jenkins' decision as a director, but there was way too much slow-mo going on in these battle sequences. It would she'd start to do something cool, and then she'd she would speed up and she'd flip around, and then she'd just about to start do something cool again, and then slow down. And you're on the edge of your seat, and you're like, what, don't slow down, keep the sequence, keep it going, stop slowing the scene down. So that was distracting, but not so much so that it's going to take away from your experience of the movie at all. Something else that I really enjoyed about this film was that they took time to explore humanity. I mean, I've only seen a couple of superhero films here and there, but for the most part, destruction of cities and stuff like that, it's not really covered. I mean, I think they did it in Civil War. In Civil War, Captain America Civil War, they really started to explore humanity more, but for the most part, they really don't touch on that stuff. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, I threw a city on 1 million people and that's it. In this movie, they really slow down and they touch on humanity. There's this really beautiful sequence in Veld, I think the town was called Veld, where they have to save the town. There's this really heroic sequence where they're saving the town from all this, from the warfare that's going on. And this is where Diana really shines for the first time as Wonder Woman. They save the whole town. The town rejoices, and then afterwards at nighttime, there's an open bar. The cafes, the shops are open. There's a beautiful soft yellow glow color palette going on in the background. And Chris Pine's character and Diana begin to dance as the snow lightly falls around them. And it's this very gorgeous, beautifully shot sequence with this soft yellow lights, the soft glow in the background. And it's very subtle and easy, and just the film just takes time to slow down for a minute. And it almost felt like a classic movie. It felt like I was watching Casablanca or something like that, like one of those old classic romances. And that of course brings me to the love story aspect of this movie, which was, again, I'm saying this constantly, but again, very well executed love story. Because I'm not a big love story guy, and that's not because I hate love stories and stuff like that. It's just that nowadays the problem with pop culture is that pop culture has kind of ruined love stories. All love stories these days are pop culturized, and there's not really any feeling or emotion going on here. And they're just not done right, Patty Jenkins, she knows how to direct a love scene. And the thing about her is that she knows how to direct love scenes soft, subtle, easy, and yet passionate at the same time. It's not the focus. It's not the show-stopping romance going on between Diana and Chris Pine, Chris Pine's character. It's just subtle. It's just laced in very easily throughout the story. And when there is passion between them, it's very soft and it's very subtle, and it's very well done. It's very believable, and again, humanity, very human. Lots of humanity, lots of human aspects in this movie. Now, as for the overall pacing of the movie, how was it done throughout the entire thing from beginning to the end? Very, very well. It's been a long time since I've seen a movie that was this evenly paced. I never got bored. I never wanted to look down. I never wanted to go to the bathroom. My eyes were locked on the screen the entire time, trying to figure out what was going to happen next. What's somebody going to say next? What's the next action sequence that's coming up? Oh wait, what is this leading up to? What's that leading up to? You're never bored. You never want to look away. It's just you are. I was totally invested in the movie the whole time, and that's a treasure to me. That's something truly to cherish, about movies, when something is just so evenly paced throughout the entire film, so much so where you don't want to take your eyes off the screen, you don't want to go to the bathroom or anything. That's something that I really treasure about a movie experience, and hats off to you, Patty Jenkins, for making an extremely well-paced movie. So finally here, now as we come to the very end of the movie, the last couple of sequences of the movie, something that really stood out to me about the end here was Chris Pine's death sequence. He had a great death sequence in this movie. It was great, turning around and aiming the gun at all the bombs and everything, and then he hesitates, and then he snaps himself out of it and gets himself back and readies himself, and then he hesitates again, and then he finds his moment of peace, and he thinks about Diana, and he thinks about how much he loves her, and then he pulls the trigger, and then the plane blows up, and he saves everything. And then after this death sequence, of course, the true emergence of Diana as Wonder Woman, proving that love can conquer all, and all that. I loved her emergence. The just breaking out of the chains, breaking out of the ties, and just coming out as this kind of like phoenix out of the ashes almost, and just becoming the true God killer. As she was supposed to be, and seeing her full power come to life. It was one of the most epic sequences of the entire movie. But, one of my qualms here at the end was the love dynamic that was going on. Now, Diana was temporarily deaf for a moment, so she couldn't hear Chris Pine's last words before he got on to the plane, right? Now, I thought that entire sequence where she couldn't understand what he was saying was very heartbreaking. Because, as I was watching that sequence play out, I was like, okay, I get it. I get what's going on. I totally understand what's going on here, and this is really heartbreaking because she's not hearing his last words, and he can't wait. He can't wait. He's got to run. He's got to go. He can't wait. And so it was very heartbreaking. And then during the last battle sequence, remember when she's holding the tank above her head, and then she has this like vision where she hears his words. And I understand that she had to hear his words to be able to wake up as the full Wonder Woman, love conquers all and all this stuff. But what bothered me about it is that after that happened, I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm not that sad anymore. She heard his last words. It's not that heartbreaking anymore. Because the heartbreaking part, it was like Titanic. That's the whole heartbreaking aspect about the end of Titanic was that Rose never got a chance to say goodbye to Jack. Sure, they never got to live their life together, whatever, but she never said goodbye to him. She was like, oh crap, I woke up during the middle of the night and he was dead, and I had to let him go, and he was gone to the ocean. That was so sad about Titanic, right? Well, they had this similar thing going on here, and then they ruined it. As the movie went on. All of a sudden, then she heard his last words, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's not so sad. So that's one kind of minor qualm. It would have been nice if they'd kept that the way that I think they were intending to keep it, but again, a very, very minor qualm. But something that was a kind of a major qualm for me about this movie is that the overall end was just jumbled. The whole ending of the movie was really, really jumbled. I did love the reveal of Ares. I thought it was really cool because even I slipped up. I'm usually really, really good at detecting who is the bad guy in all these movies. Even I slipped up in this movie. I was like, oh, like it's him, like it's this guy. Oh, and when I saw it, I was like, okay, like I get it, I understand it. But that even fooled me. That even fooled me for a minute. And I loved his reveal because they kind of played him off like this ghost figure. Diana's walking along the outside of the building, and right before she comes inside, he disappears. And then she walks into the building, and then he's outside the building. And I love that whole like ghost aspect that they played. Very, very suspenseful, very, very suspenseful directing there. But something that I just didn't care for was this metal suit that he constructed for himself at the end. I mean, what what is he, Doctor Doom? You know what I'm saying? It's just like I didn't appreciate how they kind of like they took him out of the suit. I liked when he was in the suit and the tie and the trench coat and he was floating up in the air and doing all this mystical stuff with a suit on. That was unique. I love that look. Maybe if you want to give him like one evil eye or something like that to like, you know, tie his character together, that's fine, but what's with the metal suit? I mean, he looked like, you know, he had this metal suit with like horns on his head. He looked like Sauron from like Lord of the Rings or something. And it's like, what was going on here? And like, you know, carving the eye holes. I was like, guys, come on. Like, can we just get on with the battle sequence here? Like, you know, and it looks so CG. When they were fighting, you know, not Diana, but Ares, he looked so CG and all the metal swords and everything. Why do you need swords? We've established that you guys can use telekinetic power. You guys are hurling tanks at each other. Ares picked up a section of the ground off of the ground and started crumbling it underneath Diana. I mean, that's some Final Fantasy stuff right there. You know, it's like why are you using metal swords, and why do you all of a sudden sound like the devil now and all this stuff? It's like they can do other things with villains. That's all I'm saying, is that they seem to follow these classic tropes with villains in all of these superhero movies, you know. I guess all I'm saying on that front is that it just seems like, you know, we have this common problem in movies today. It's not just like, it's not just superhero movies. People they don't know how to end movies, and they don't know how to write villains. It's like the two most common problems in all of the theater industry right now. It's like, when are we going to get to the point where you guys can end movies correctly and you guys can write villains correctly that are just they have to, you know, we have to respond to them. You know, people identify with villains as much as they do with heroes. You have to understand that. You know, I mean, like for instance, you know, I identified more with Dr. Poison more than I did with Ares. Why didn't you make her the main villain? Why didn't you make her Ares? You know, I mean, there would have been a great twist. You know what I'm saying? I mean, or something like that. Just do something a little different. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, we have to get to the point where the endings of these movies are not so jumbled together and rushed and you know, and all these, you know, following all these classic tropes and stuff like that. I really want to see us get out of that trend. Something else that was kind of weird also at the end of the movie was Diana being in modern times. Because we know that at the beginning of the movie it starts out in modern times and she's reminiscing about the past and stuff, but then when we get to the end of the movie, she's in modern times, and then she gets in her Wonder Woman costume, and then she goes out into the city, you know, presumably to go into what, you know, I mean, I don't know the order of the movies, but what, you know, Dawn of Justice or Justice League or something like that is next, to go out into the modern times, right? Well, what happened to World War II? What happened to Hitler? I mean, are we covering that at all? There's all kinds of wars that have happened up until this point where Diana is now. So is she going to be recalling more stories from the past? Was World War I the only significant story we need to hear about? Because it seems like they're going forward with Wonder Woman. They're going into present day with Wonder Woman, just going forward. But I mean, you know, I'd love to see them explore that. I'd love to see them make another Wonder Woman movie, but this time exploring World War II and Hitler and the Nazis and all that. I think that would be a very, very fascinating next direction to take Wonder Woman in. But again, you know, I'm not well versed in the comic book, you know, DC, Marvel, and that whole universe. So now, of course, it's time for you to leave your thoughts and opinions down below in the Great White Void. If you guys are big superhero fans, much more than I am, please leave all of your thoughts and opinions down below, because I want to hear from you. And as far as a final score for this movie goes right now, I don't really have a scoring system or anything like that set up. I'll let you guys know in the future after I kind of like, you know, get a scoring system organized. But as of right now, I'll just kind of like borrow other people's systems. If I were to give it a letter grade, I would have to definitely go with an A-, which is a really excellent letter grade for me. I don't give movies an A rating at all anytime, but this movie was just so well executed and so well directed and acted and everything, and it deserves an A- rating. I'm giving it the minus scale there a little bit because of the classic tropes that were throughout, but they were uniquely done, so that's why it still maintains the A. You know, if I were to give it a 0 out of 100, it would be like a 90, you know, or something like that. Again, just taking off little bits of points for the classic tropes and stuff like that, but nothing at all that's going to deter you, that's going to distract you, or that's going to make you hate this movie at all. This movie was fantastic. It was excellent. Very, very well done a piece of work by Patty Jenkins here. She has a bright future ahead of her in terms of directing and filmmaking, and I cannot wait to see more from her. So guys, that's going to do it for my very first movie review. As I said, please leave all of your thoughts and opinions down below in the Great White Void, and I will see you back next time. Please leave all of your suggestions. What do you guys want me to go see next? What are you interested in? What should I continue to do on this channel? You guys grow this as much as I do, so thank you all for your continued support, and I will see you on the next video. Later.